Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. So we're continuing on with our Spright variants. Yesterday we covered the Pure Spright combo guide and then the deck profile the day before that. Today we're going to move on to probably the next most popular variant of Spright, and that's going to be the Runick Spright deck. So this is one of the variants that most of you have probably been hearing the most about. Going into the release of this pack, it is pretty widely believed to be the most powerful variant, and indeed there is good reason to believe so. Of course, we have all gotten well acquainted with the Runick package at this point. You can see we're rocking triple Hugin, as well as double Fountain, triple Tip. We got three of all of the usual suspects, and then our one of Smiting Storm for the Runick cards. And as we all know, Hugin is a nice, very convenient level 2. And for that reason, the Spright engine slots in very nicely. We're of course playing 3 blue, 3 jet, one of each red and carrot, as well as 2 starters and a smasher. And then in the extra deck, we got the 2 Gigatic Spright and the 2 Spright Elf. So, what is Runick Spright all about? Well, Runick Spright is less about doing a specific combo line, aside from relatively simple Spright lines, and OTKing the opponent, and more about just a pure grindy control game. It's funny, as I was playing this, I found myself thinking that this is probably the closest Yu-Gi-Oh deck, in recent memory anyway, to a Magic the Gathering style control deck. I think like a blue-white control deck where your win con is just like pure attrition. I guess it's more fair to call it like blue-black because we are milling our opponents here. But that's Magic the Gathering terms. In any case, the idea is that we're just going to not only grind our opponent out of cards in their deck, obviously the Runick cards all banishing cards from the opponent's deck, but we're even more quickly than that much more quickly than that, able to just kind of grind them out of advantage, right? We can disrupt our opponent's plays, and we can eat a lot of disruption on their end and still have a lot of advantage on them, mostly thanks to Wind-Up Fountain, and then of course just the natural advantage that the Spright engine generates. So we have a few card choices that might look a little bit weird here. I'm going to be talking about those. Mainly our little package of level 2 monsters. So you might not recognize some of these monsters here. We got one copy of each Wind-Up Kitten, Iparia, and Capshell. And I'm going to go over the functions of each of these here real quick. Wind-Up Kitten is used as a removal tool. It can be used multiple times per turn, just once while it's faced upon the field. So you can summon this, bounce an opponent's monster, then use it as a material, and then later in the turn bring it back with like Spright Elf, and then bounce yet another monster. Another great function of Wind-Up Kitten is to actually bounce Lava Golem. Lava Golem is in here as a board breaker, and we don't really need our normal summon to make plays the vast majority of the time. The only things you would ever normal summon are one of these level 2 monsters, or like a Maxx, or maybe if we opened like blue plus jet, and like maybe we'd normal summon one of those, but long story short, like, you can generally get away without normal summoning because you'll just throw out a Hugin with a Runick card, and then you can special blue or jet, or you can just use starters. You have a million ways to do it. So Lava Golem is a very effective board clear, and we can also use the Wind-Up Kitten to bounce that Lava Golem back to our hand. Very nice way to consistently remove multiple monsters off the opponent's board. Iparia is an advantage engine in the form of draw rather than in the form of like board removal, like the Wind-Up Kitten is. Iparia is just straight up, when this card is summoned, draw a card. Now you can only do this once per turn, but of course Spright Elf is capable of summoning monsters on the opponent's turn as well. So you can summon an Iparia, draw a card on your turn, and then on your opponent's turn use Spright Elf to bring it back and draw yet another card. Speaking of card draw, that is also the function of this last one here, Capshell. When this card is used as pretty much any kind of material, whether it's distributed, fusion, synchro, link, or if it's detached as an Xyz material, you get to draw one card. I will note one important thing about this third effect. If this card is detached from an Xyz monster, to activate that monster's effect. Now, if you attach the Capshell to the Gigatic Spright, and then you use the Gigatic Spright's effect, that actually won't trigger the Capshell. That might not make a lot of sense at first, but let's look at the wording here. Capshell says, if this card is detached from an Xyz monster, to activate that monster's effect. Gigatic Spright says, let's see, where's the line here? During your main phase, you can activate this effect, then detach, it doesn't say then, but you can activate this effect, semicolon, detach one material. So, as you can see, detaching a material is actually not required to activate Gigantic Spright's effect. It actually happens upon resolution of the effect. And Capshell needs to be detached in order to activate an effect to draw a card. So just be mindful of that. You cannot draw a card off of Capshell if you detach it from Gigantic Spright with Gigantic Spright's effect. You're gonna have to put it on like Onibimaru or Djinn Buster or something like that. Because I believe this, yeah, this is Dharc, so you can definitely make Djinn Buster there with it. Lava Golem, I already talked about. Like I said, it's a nice way to get rid of multiple monsters on the opponent's board. Also because it is a quote-unquote kaiju type of effect, where it's just tributing the opponent's monsters, your opponent is really not going to have much of a window to respond there. I think that just about covers, you know, pretty much every card of the main deck and its functions. The extra deck is relatively self-explanatory. We're of course on triple Hugin, and then one Geri. We don't need any of the other Runick extra deck monsters, like Munin is, you know, it's not necessary. We're also only on 2 Fountain because mainly just to keep the deck down to 40, and because 3 is not very necessary at all. We of course have a lot of cards to access Hugin, that being all the Runick cards, so we can just use those to get to our Fountain pretty easily there. Got our standard suite of rank 2s and then link 2s here. For this deck's IP targets, it's actually going to be a little bit different than pure Spright. We've got Knightmare Unicorn and Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax. So here I'm not looking to use Appaloosa to negate my opponent's stuff because, well, I've got the Runick cards for Disruption. So I don't feel like I need the Disruption in that regard. The Knightmare Unicorn actually can be nice as Disruption just because it shuffles back specifically, but mainly with IP, I actually don't know about mainly, it really does depend, but a decent amount of time with IP, we're actually going into the Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax because we can often either force our opponent to use a lot of resources or just like outright strip our opponent of those resources with our negates in the form of Red and Carrot, and then by the time the opponent can finally make a play, did I say that right? Yeah, by the time they finally make a play, I don't know why I thought I said that wrong, sorry about that. We're going to use IP and then just go into the Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax. You can do IP plus Spright Elf in order to do that, and it's very hard to out in Avramax. It's got an IP under it anyway, and even after your opponent has lost all those resources, it's going to be like that much more difficult. So I really like the Avramax. You could also play, I know, who was I watching that was playing that? Oh, it was Lithium 2300, who I love watching. I love his content. He was playing an Unchained Abomination that is another Link 4. Fairly powerful one that you could go into as well here, if you want to tech that. Alright, I think that's about everything I wanted to cover with this list as far as explaining all my card choices here. So, yeah, let's go ahead and break the list down card by card and take a look at some games. We're playing 3 Maxx, 1 Wind-Up Kitten, 1 Iparia, 1 Capshell, 3 Spright Blue, 3 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 3 Lava Golem, 2 Runick Fountain, 2 Called by the Grave, 3 Runick Tip, 3 Runick Flashing Fire, 3 Runick Destruction, 3 Runick Freezing Curses, 3 Runick Slumber, 1 Runick Smiting Storm, 2 Spright Starter, and then of course Spright Smashers as well. Now for the extra deck, we're playing 3 Hugin, the Runick Wings, 1 Geri, the Runick Fangs, 1 number 65 Djinn Buster, 1 Sky Cavalry Centurea, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigatic Spright, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dharc the Dharc Charmer, Gloomy, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, and then 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax. That's going to round out the list. Now let's take a look at that gameplay. Alright, first duel here, we're going to be up against pure Spright. Going to be a lot of Spright v Spright games, whether it's, you know, Runick, Pure, Try, Live Twin. There's even like Prank Kids that had Emancipator variants as well. So, gonna be a lot of like not quite mirror matches, but slight mirror matches. Here, I just forgot to throw out the Maxx on the draw phase. Still learning to be quick on the trigger with that. For those who don't know, you know, in the past I have said that Maxx, you should wait for an opportunity like this where you know your opponent is going to get a special summon to try to get a guaranteed draw off of it. And on Ranked Ladder in the past, that has worked out. I will say, and this is more true the higher rank you tend to be, but more and more people are going to start running triple tactics talent. That's going to be like almost a staple moving forward, I would argue, because Spright Elf is going to be activating on a lot of people's turns. So in that regard, in order to play around the triple tactics talent, you really want to be firing off your Maxx during your opponent's draw or standby phase. Because if you do it during the main phase, then they can activate their triple tactics talent, and we definitely don't want to have that happen if we can help it. So, yeah, I'm going to Maxx, and my opponent's actually going to throw out a Joel Mockbird, which, you know, it's annoying. I mean, I'm not going to get any more draws, but at the same time, my opponents now cut themselves off from searching as well. To be fair, they were still able to make plenty of plays without searching, but yeah, they're not going to be able to really do anything with, like, Blue, Jet. I'm guessing they didn't have access to those cards anyway, and that's probably likely why they went with this line anyway. But that also means that this Spright Elf doesn't really have anything, like, great to get back at all here. It's just, like, yeah, Swat Frogs and Ronins and stuff. So if my opponent is just ending on Spright Elf, IP, and Ronin, like, yeah, I'm not super concerned with that. This hand it's not too bad here. We've got a couple of good Runick cards. Drawing that blue is really, really good. I'm actually going to start with the, what is it called? I can never remember these different names here. The Runick cards. Well, I'm blanking. Flashing Fire, here we go. I'm going to Flashing Fire during the standby phase because both IP and Spright Elf can only activate during the main phase. So by firing that off during the standby phase, I not only, of course, denied them bringing a monster back with Spright Elf, which again, they didn't really have anything super great to bring back, but still would put a free body on the board. That also cuts them off from being able to go into a Link, I almost said rank, Link 4 with IP Masquerena in this situation. So looking to kind of cut off both avenues there. One of the advantages of Runick, actually, well, Runick Spright in particular, well, I guess Runick in general, is that you can utilize these quick way removal cards at pretty much any point, not only during your turn, but of course during your opponent's turn if you've got the Fountain in play. So at this point, yeah, I'm just kind of vomiting out Spright monsters onto my board. Gonna go into an Elf and bring one of my monsters back here, the blue. Yeah, I can't really battle anyway, so I'm just gonna go for the Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, just so I can get rid of my opponent's IP Masquerena, and then I'll set this Spright Smashers. I did actually misplay here. It was really subtle, you might not have noticed, but I went straight from main to end phase. You do actually need to be going to your battle phase so that it gets skipped. That's definitely something that I've been trying to get better at as I play this deck more, because, you know, I've played Runick in the past. It's a variant that doesn't, it's variants rather, they don't really rely on battling, like, at all. This variant, like, you don't have to win by battling, but it's one of the more common ways to win. I think you'll more often win by, you know, grinding your opponent out of resources, having one huge battle phase, as opposed to milling them every single time. So you should be clicking battle phase, so that way it gets skipped. Because if you go straight from main to end phase, if I recall correctly, that will not actually, like, skip your battle phase. You'll go to the next turn. If you try to battle then you'll get skipped, even if you haven't activated any Runick cards, because of the way it's worded, it says skip your next battle phase. In any case here, I've got both the Carrot and the Red, so I'm not particularly concerned with really anything my opponent can do. I'm going to use the Red to negate this Jet, just sacking the Carrot. That way I can just Elf and get the Carrot back straight away. I did think about sending the Soul Sweeper just to negate and destroy the Jet. That way they wouldn't be able to go into a Gigantic Spright here. But at the same time, I'm just going to use the Spright Smashers. I guess in that regard, it kind of doesn't matter which way I do it, but this way also gets a Gigantic Spright out of their extra deck and banished, so I don't have to deal with that. Alright, all they can really do, yeah, at this point is bring back the Ronin. They will get the IP Masquerena back, but they didn't really do anything with it last turn, so I really don't suspect they're going to be doing a whole lot with it this turn either. I'm going to try to use the Elf to bring back this Spright Blue. Opponent's got a Veiler. I really don't care at all about this Elf getting negated. Now, I'll use Capshell alongside the Spright Carrot in order to go into the Dharc Charmer Gloomy. This was a misplay. I forgot that you needed to specifically summon it to, like, a zone. Otherwise, I was planning on stealing I think, yeah, my opponent's Spright Jet here in order to start up some plays. But, yeah, the Dharc Charmer doesn't just summon a monster. I got it mixed up with Spright Elf. Spright Elf, you don't actually have to put the monster in the zone to bring it back. But Dharc, you do. So, whoops, a little bit of a misplay on my part, but, yeah, it's fine. It's not a big deal. I was going to Onibimaru the opponent's IP because I was probably just going to use it as a material for Link summons. So, the fact that I forced the Knightmare Unicorn out here is totally fine. All they can put back in this situation is the Spright Elf. So I guess they elected to just not activate the Knightmare Unicorn. Maybe they thought their last card was going to be a little bit more valuable, but here I'm able to start getting my Runick Fountain online. I think I already showed my opponent that I was Runick. Oh, yeah, of course I did because of the freezing curses, but yeah, now I'm really going to start gaining lots of advantage. But like I said, I'm just going to link away the Onibimaru anyway. I'm going to go for Knightmare Unicorn just to like get rid of theirs so they don't have any like, you know, extra link materials on board. And then my opponent just concedes. So funnily enough, your main win con, at least in my experience playing this deck so far, your main win condition as the Runick Spright player is actually just your opponent conceding. That's one of the reasons why I said it reminds me of Magic the Gathering control decks, is because a lot of the time in Magic the Gathering when you're on control, your win condition is just inevitability. Like, you get to a point in the game like we were at here where the opponent is on so few resources and I'm on so many that, like, even though I'm not going to win the duel anytime soon, my opponent does not have any realistic chance of being able to come back here. So that's kind of what this deck is all about. Let's go and take a look at the next game to see some more examples. Alright, this time we're going to be up against Mutant, and I feel really bad for playing against Mutant. I mean, I can't lie, right now it feels bad to play, if you're playing a Spright deck, it kind of feels bad to play any deck that's not a Spright deck. Like, I knew there was going to be a pretty significant power gap, like a noticeable one, between Spright and the rest of the field. Not that decks that don't play Spright are completely unviable, but I will say Spright does have a notable advantage. Like, I won't lie, in some games it kind of feels like when you're playing against a deck that's not on Spright, you're just bullying them a little bit. So anyway, I'm going to start with the Hugin here. The opponent's got an Ash Blossom for it, but I've got the Call By. I have to throw out the Maxx, which is a little bit painful, but we're going to have a solid start and draw a lot of cards off this Fountain anyway, so it's really not that big of a deal. Now I get to special summon the Jet. I'm going to do my Spright stuff before I actually draw off this Fountain, just to kind of thin my deck a little bit. So yeah, I will get out the red this way as well. That's another reason to, you know, do the Spright Starters to the blue to the red before making your other plays. I really like that Gigantic Spright animation, by the way. The lightning is just so cool. So here I'll get Iparia just to get some extra draws. I already have all my Spright stuff, so I don't need to get blue or Jet out of the deck. And I guess I could have just made this Gigantic Spright in attack mode because it does have double attack points. Yeah, I actually should have done that instead of putting it in defense mode, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. Only, quote-unquote, only 2 draws off of Runick Fountain, which I was about to say, again, is also not that big of a deal. If you can only, again, I'm going to throw heavy air quotes around, only get 2 draws off of Fountain. That's still fine. Really, any amount of draws you can get off of Fountain is fine. No need to greed for 3. Alright, so they're going to play a Pot of Prosperity. I'm just going to fire off my Spright Elf in response, just to get it, you know, get it out of the way, get my material on board. I could have gotten back blue or Jet for a search, but I like getting back the Iparia for the draw while I have the Fountain up, just because, you know, you might top deck a relevant Runick spell there. Alright, so now my opponent's starting to play their mutant monsters. As soon as this activates, I'm just gonna Freezing Curses. This is about to be like the ultimate kind of despair turn for the opponent. I'm just gonna end up countering them at like literally every single move they make here. And because I used the Tip earlier in the turn, I get a couple of draws here as well. Still got the Flashing Fire and the Red Negate. Speaking of Flashing Fire, I'll just throw it out when the Mutant comes out. Mutant comes out. It's like, wow, say that 5 times fast. They do have the E-Tally for the ST46. I'm just going to sack this Iparia with the red to negate that. And at this point, I'm like, surely they don't have any more gas, right? But they actually do. I didn't realize ST46 had a second effect there. So I maybe should have negated. Actually, What are this card's effects? Okay, actually, I don't regret negating them adding a mutant spell or trap card. That's totally fine. So they're going to end up with a mutant beast, which can't be targeted, so Knightmare Unicorn is not really an out to this right here. But this is the exact kind of situation where I like to go for Mekk-Knight, Crusadia, Avramax. Like, as you can see, the opponent's completely been grinded down on resources. They've only got one other card in hand, aside from this mutant beast, and like, there's really no realistic way they can out this Crusadia Avramax. So, I mean, they can, yeah, I was gonna say, they can battle over the Spright Red if they want. That's fine. And to be fair, I can't attack on the next turn, but again, it's all about inevitability is the name of the game with Runick Spright. You don't have to win the next turn like you do with the most Yu-Gi-Oh decks. You just have to, like, make sure your opponent has absolutely no chance of winning. Yeah, so we've got a couple more games to take a look at. Let's go and jump straight into the next one. Here we have yet another duel against a pure Spright deck. This one is interesting. It doesn't seem to be running an additional level 2 engine alongside the frogs. Like, usually pure Spright is running the frogs than either the Diva engine or the Nimble engine, but this opponent has elected to just play more disruption and hand traps instead, which is fine by me. Another game where I forgot to throw out Maxx during the draw phase. I will admit I was actually watching videos while I was doing these duels, which honestly, like, when I'm laddering, I do that most of the time, just to kind of, like, you know, get some relaxation in while I'm getting some content ready as well. So yeah, sometimes that's kind of why I make minor misplays, but, you know, minor misplays are, well, they're just that, they're minor. Super jealous of my opponent's Royal Gigantic Spright. Oh, I would have loved one of those, but, whatever. It's all good. Oh, I did actually end up, I don't know how many of you actually care about this, but I did actually end up pulling one more Gigantic Spright from my last, like, guaranteed 10-pack, so I didn't have to craft that. It's funny, I kind of complained a little bit about my pulls, but looking back, like, yeah, I pulled a lot of ultra rares that weren't Spright stuff, but I still pulled a lot of ultra rares, to be fair. I think I ended up with, like, oh god, I ended up with like 4 of one of the Neos fusion, and I had 5 Power Tool Braver Dragons at the end of it. It was gross, but whatever. We had all the stuff at the end of it, so can't ask for too much more than that. Yeah, I definitely want to call by my opponent getting back this Spright Carrot, because, you know, we're on the Runick variant. We need our spell cards to be resolving here. The Spright Blue is also something I really would have liked to have resolved, but the fact that it didn't is not the end of the world by any means here. Okay, I'm going to link these two off for Spright Elf, doing it this way so I get a draw off of Capshell, which definitely paid off as I ended up getting the Spright Red here. So I chained the Flashing Fire. I remember why. I was actually thinking about chaining the Maxx. I was about to say I don't know why I didn't, but I do remember. I thought about it and I ultimately decided that, you know, I'd rather have Maxx for my opponent's next turn, just in case, you know, that back row is something actually relevant or things go south otherwise here. I thought maybe they were going to go for a Knightmare Unicorn. I was trying to figure out, like, okay, if they get rid of Spright Elf, we still have some amount of plays with blue plus red, but they actually go for Topologic Trizbenia here, which I don't get it, honestly. It just seems like it's a 2500 vanilla beat stick, because of course I'm going to be mindful to not special summon anything into the zone that it's pointed to. Alright, here I get to make a big gigantic Spright. Seems a little redundant, but I get to make one that's at 3200 attack points. Opponent's got the Imperm for it though, which is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. I'm just actually going to go for Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy here, and then I get to steal my opponent's IP Masquerena. Now, unfortunately, I don't get to make Crusadia Avramax because this Masquerena was not summoned from the extra deck, which would have been very nice, but, you know, it's fine. So this Maxx that I was going to save... Oh, sorry, I thought I was going into Knightmare Unicorn here. I was actually thinking about doing that at this stage in the game, but I was like, that feels bad. I don't want to, like, throw away this Maxx because, you know, they're on Sprights. This one last card could very easily by itself get them into plays. So, yeah, I thought I was going to go to the Knightmare Unicorn there, but what I ended up doing instead is just going for Spright Elf, and then using that to get back Spright Blue. Like, yeah, my opponent still has their Topologic Trisbenia on the board, but I don't really care about that. Like I said, it's really only just a 2500 beat stick, and if they battle over one of these monsters, that's fine. I'll still have another monster, and I'll still also have the Jet that Blue is going to add. So I could even just not activate the Maxx in the right scenario and just hold on to it, so that way I can guarantee to have a play of normal summon Maxx, special summon Spright Jet, and then we search starters, and then you just have Spright plays by this point. So alright, there's that duel. I've got one more to show you all, so let's just dive straight into it. Alright, for our final game here, I'm going to be up against Mekk-Knight Adagnister. Yeah, it does not seem like it was that, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I was going to say it doesn't seem like that long ago. It wasn't that long ago that, you know, I was, you know, taking diligent notes to learn those Mekk-Knight lines, and yeah, it's not that the information is, like, useless or anything. Like, Mekk-Knight is definitely more than playable in this format. It's definitely still a good deck, but yeah, no, now we're definitely like devoting all of our brain power towards learning all these Spright plays. Alright, so I got a relatively standard start here, just opening with Runick stuff, looking to draw some Spright cards. We get the Jet, so, I mean, that's really all you need is either a Jet or Blue or a Starter. So with 8 total cards to draw, it's pretty ridiculous, honestly. Alright, from there, yeah, we can get Blue, and then Blue for Red, summon Red. Go for the Gigatic Spright, and this looks like a case where we can just get out Iparia, because we don't really need anything else. Yep, get Iparia, get the draw, and then we can link away the Iparia, or just send it with a Spright Red, and then summon it back with Spright Elf later for even more draws. Yep, here's the Elf. I'm getting back Jet just to have a body here. Obviously, it doesn't get to activate twice. God, the deck's not that good, but we do get to end on the IP Masquerena, and then I get to throw down this Columbine here, too. Oh, this Smiting Storm. That was actually a misplay on my part, adding the Smiting Storm. I meant to point this out. You probably wonder why I used Runick Tip to get Smiting Storm of all cards here. I totally misplayed. I thought I could special summon... what is it? Geri of the Runick Fangs. That's also why I activated my second fountain over the first fountain. I thought I was going to be able to Smiting Storm for Geri, and then I could get the draws off the second fountain, and then add the first fountain back. But of course, because I use Gigatic Spright, I can't special summon Geri, because Geri is level 4, not level 2. So, that little sequence there with all the Runick cards at the end probably looked really weird, but that's all it was about, so... Opponent is on Cosmic Cyclone for my called by. That's completely fine. I don't care at all. Even if Cosmic Cyclone had targeted Fountain, honestly, I really don't care here. It's just one of the reasons, I don't know, it's one of the reasons why I say Cosmic Cyclone is just not that great. And I think moving forward, it's just going to keep getting worse, honestly. So here we do get to resolve the Maxx. I don't know. Again, I could have just activated it during the draw phase, but... to be fair, I had the Spright Red as well. Well, I guess that doesn't stop the main reason you would want to activate it during the draw phase, which is Triple Tactics talent, but... yeah, I just really wasn't on my game with that, I guess, during these matches. I didn't realize I'd missed it that many times until just now, but... it's all good. It's just a learning process. Definitely gotta give yourself that room to learn. Can't be too hard on yourself for... like, sometimes I'm tempted to, you know, be kind of harsh on myself for making a misplay, because I have this thought of like, oh, I should have known that, like I knew that, but like, you know, ideally, yes, having the knowledge means you get to use that knowledge to play around, you know, not making that misplay, but at the same time, you just can't beat yourself up for it, especially really early on. Like, there's definitely a difference between, oh, I know this because I read it on a combo guide / saw it in a video, but haven't done it yet myself, and then there's knowing it because, like, or, you know, because you've done it so many times. So, you know, if you're in the former group, if you're new to a deck or even new to a play, like maxing during the draw phase, and you like catch yourself missing it, like, just try to go easy on yourself. If you're, again, like me and tend to beat yourself up about it. So this IP Masquerena was definitely questionable, this activation here. I probably should have saved it to go for Avramax, given that I'm up against Mekk-Knight Adagnister specifically. Because, yes, the Knightmare Unicorn putting back the Cyber Squid Kid very likely stops their plays, but we do actually live in the world where it doesn't. My opponent had a second Ignister Island, so they did actually have another life card here. So I was kind of playing this Knightmare Unicorn hinging on the fact that they didn't have another life play, but at the same time, if I could just draw a Runick Freezing Curses here to get a monster negate, then I would be all set. And I really need to draw that pretty soon, as it's pretty clear my opponent's about to go for an Access Code line. Here we finally did get the Freezing Curses, so you know, you could argue that was luck, but at the same time, I've drawn so many cards off of Maxx. I feel like I had 3 of this in deck. I was due to draw it at some point. I'm bound to, not due to. So yeah, they'll get the Update Jammer and Access Code effect, but I can flip my toggle to on over here. After the resolution of the summon, that's a window in which you can activate Freezing Curses or just a response in general. So we get to negate the Access Code effect so it can't pop, and also doesn't have the attack boost, and they're going to try to attack over my Spright Elf, but I get to protect it with Slumber. That way it's not going to get destroyed, and yeah, at that point my opponent just concedes, because there's just no way they're going to be able to come back. They've already used so many of their resources, they can't Access Code OTK me, and I, of course, have, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards in hand, just casually holding 11 cards in my hand. Alright. There are those games. I hope you found this video useful. We still definitely have some more Spright variants to cover in the days to come. But for now, let's just go ahead and move on to the outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There, for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.